Um, I can see at least I see Stephen Cabell. I see Jerry. I don't think I'm seeing everybody. I see TY is here. I see Paulo. Hi, and Phil Gaskill. Um, Chris North, who's a former student, really brilliant film composer. So, okay, so I'm like this kind of person where I get excited looking at people's faces. I'm constantly scanning for approval. So I'm like relying on you to have your camera on so I can see a reaction from your face just to see, whether I'm doing okay. um, and I'm properly caffeinated, so my mind feels like it's going a million miles an hour. If you need me to slow down a little bit, just raise your hand and just say G. And call me G, like the letter G, after the letter F. F for Fred, who's going to talk to you at, 90 minutes from now. Uh, so just say G. You gotta slow down a little because I have a question. And so I'd like this to be very interactive, very collaborative. I'm evoking the keyword already. So I welcome you to be a collaborator in this, I don't know, talk, presentation, just a party, collaborative brainstorm party. All right. So yeah, faces. Love it, love it, love it. All right. First of all, I'm just delighted to spend an hour or so with you to explore a few ideas that, that are important to me. You don't have to like them, but they're important to me. My hope is that, of course, you find some value in my value system, then my idea wouldn't be alone anymore. And I certainly want to hear about it if you want to tell me that I might be onto something. You've been thinking about similar things. It's just you haven't really been, putting it into words or haven't had the opportunity to execute your ideas. And if not, I still want to hear from you after this. Like, what did I miss? What blind spots have you noticed? I'm just like everybody else. I'm full of blind spots. And there is no right or wrong in our discussion. And this is not about coming up with answers or finding solutions. In art, it has never been about solutions and answers. And my money is on putting my finger on a few questions that are worth collective efforts. And if I'm lucky, if we can do this together, we might even find a pause. So let's begin, eh? I'm going to begin by sharing my screen because I made a fancy slide. Very proud of it. Sharing computer sound and share. Hands up if you can see the title, Exploring Modalities. Yes, yes. All right. Wonderful. Yay. Works. All right. I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I consider myself very fortunate that I have had one amazing mentor after another. At the age of 4, around 4, so I was put in front of Yang Liqing, this cigarette smoking, handsome older gentleman in the photo at the age of 4. And he was one of those gentle giant of generosity, he's what I call the triple G effect. Oh, all puns intended. Isn't my name G? Woo! So, okay, this is the triple G effect. And I didn't care much about music at the time. I was 4 years old. I mean, cut me some slack, okay? I was the kind of 4 year old that I failed at being 2 and 3. So I didn't even know how I got to be 4. So I I didn't even, understand what am I supposed to do with this music thing. Um, but Yang Liqing was different. He wasn't miserable like everybody else in my life. So he quickly like became my hero, my first hero. And you know what they say about first kiss? The same is true about first heroes. If he told me to climb a tree, I'd go climb a tree. I don't even ask why. So he told me that I had to learn Bach, and I hated the fugue. I really could. It just made me question whether I was born with, insufficient amount of limbs. I just could not handle counterpoint, could not handle voices more than three or four, two or three. But I learned them all. I studied and I became a musician with absolutely no resentment about what I was asked to do and to sacrifice my childhood in order to achieve that level of musicianship that was demanded of me. He knew that. He knew that whatever he asked me to do, he just asked very gently, hey, you do this next week. What do you think? And I do it. And he showed me that he knew me. He saw my potential by keeping me in his private studio for 16 years, which many of you don't know who he was. He was the first Chinese composer who went to Europe post-Cultural Revolution. And he was, very accomplished, at the time, very accomplished composer, came out of China and had a big splash in the Darmstadt in the East Germany music scene. And he came back in 1984. And I was the very first student group of 6 that he agreed to take on. And I was the only one. I was the only one he kept in his studio for 14 years until I went to college at 18 years old. And he was at the time the president of Shanghai Conservatory of Music, which to this day is one of the top music schools in the world. And so, and I don't think you can have a relationship with anybody if I guess the connection was suspicious. So whatever tied us together was felt by each and both of us at the same time. We both felt something together. And it was something that I know that's fertile. And it defined me as a composer to this day. Things got a little bit different when I turned 16, when I decided that the difference between life and death is music. Long story how I got to that extreme point of view. But, in China, you have to have extreme point of view in order to stand out. Otherwise, they just chop your head off. Yeah, and he was such an accomplished musician, Yang Liqing. Anyway, so I was 16, and all of a sudden, I wasn't seen by Yang Liqing. I was seen by the Chinese, I guess, repressive and very systematic repression of individualism. You cannot say this. I cannot say this outside of this room, so please just keep it to yourself. I really didn't. I don't think I can, survive that period of repression where I was not supposed to love anything other than what the party's agenda, what the party has assigned me to love, which is the love of the motherland. And so, boy, those who paid attention to me, if I were able to get any attention from anybody, they saw my aspiration to be a musician as a problem. that needed to be handled. So they handled me uh, using one of the most elegant, clean-cut administrative procedures where they expelled me out of a very prestigious high school where I was supposed to study to be a very good scientist and serve the nation and all that. And so they expelled me, but they say you could stay here, but we have to put your registration, your name, on another school's roster. And in exchange, we're gonna take their top student and put it in your place. Um, so and I was just shocked that how can anybody not see me that and not love me for what I love. What I love is music. What I want to do with my life is to be with music. What I want to do is grow up to be like Yang Liqing, to be like my hero. That was really the only thing that kept me going in those days. So, fast forward a little bit. That's when I saw the injustice of the world, and I couldn't help but being very torn by and heartbroken by what I saw, and what that was, is that I started to get angry. I couldn't really concentrate on anything but to get into the music school of my dream, which is Shanghai Conservatory. Um, and I was so disconnected every day from the first minute of my waking hour to the last minute that I tried to stay awake. It was everybody around me saw me as this very strange person who had very strange ideas about life and about things that they don't understand, like music and art. So, fast forward a few more years. So Yang Liqing passed away a few years ago, and I miss him to no end. And I don't think I can stop yearning for that feeling of being seen for my potential, being loved for what I love, and the musical fertility that he and I shared. That relationship was the hay, and my high school officials who expelled me was the spark. And soon I realized that I would rather die than putting out that flame in my belly. Um, so I've spent my life and career thinking about this kind of excruciating disconnection from an individual to the institution, right? And I do my best to fight for solutions, and I've become, highly opinionated about the state of disconnection in our field. Dare I say, this is personal. On the surface, you could think the other side of disconnection is connection. I argue that the word connection is like not exactly the whole picture. It's very impersonal, and it almost sounds mechanical in a way. So it begs the question, if two little elements, any element, be it musical notes, be it two cultures, two individuals, two different religion, just two elements, and when they connected, so what is that relationship? What is the back and forth, right? And how do they interact? What is given, what is received? And in other words, is this connection fertile? And if connection isn't the word, then what is? And so I settled on the word collaboration. I mean, a few years from now, I might say it's not enough. Collaboration is not enough. That's entirely possible. But right now, I believe in collaboration, and I'll show you hopefully a few things I've done. Okay, so wrapping up this little prelude of my little story. So at the end of the day, all I want to know is, do you love me? Do you love what I do? uh, and I'm very greedy. I'd never be satisfied if you just tell me once. um, so yeah, that would be my little prelude. So before I move on, I'm about to show you two very, very recent collaboration. And do you have any questions? I have time to answer one from my chapter one. And you are welcome to type your question in the chat, and I think Peter has offered to show them to me. If there are questions, just raise your hand if you have a question. Oh, I'm sharing screen, so I can't really see.
I'll monitor the chat for you, and if
Okay,
you have
Peter.
questions that come in, I'll pass them on.
Great. All right, shall we move on?
Great.
Okay, so the first and foremost is that no composer can create alone. I know that there is this very cinematic idea about composers, who are just alone in the studio and in the little cabin in the woods and just blah 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 and then just produce and then drawing inspirations like some angels landing on their heads. Yeah, like I said, it's very cinematic, but I don't think most people who are music lovers or even my colleagues, would comfortably say that that composing, especially doing creative work, is about as hard as it gets, and it's that much harder if you only do it alone. So what you're looking at is just one of those projects that I have no idea how it found me, but the organist here, Mark Paco, he asked me to write a piece for him, and then we met together, and I told him a little bit about me. He told me a little bit about him, and it was not until the second meeting that he revealed to me that he had recently taken a trip to India and that he had suffered a family tragedy and that he was carrying that tragedy with him as he traveled through India. And I just looked at him like this, exactly this face. Mark, do you know that I have been like in love with Indian classical music for like 20 years? And then he didn't know. He didn't know. And I mean, how would he know? I mean, I haven't really done anything about that in my work. So I said, Mark, would you like to send me some material with your trip and let me see if it inspires me, if it could work with this piece? And I understand pipe organ, it's nowhere near what the in between notes. It's so like in tune, every note is so in tune. um so so he started sending me all of his travel videos, and it so just happened that the world premiere was scheduled for the spring. So I activated my community of Indian classical musicians, and Apik Matriji is his name. He's one of the sitar players I've been very taken by. I love what he does. So I called him up. I'm like, Apik, I need help. Um, so he just sat down with me and we talked about what raga. Raga is a series of notes in different combinations that sort of the flavor of it's It's similar to scale, but it's not exactly scale. So a raga, and then he showed me 3 or 4 raga that is appropriate for the season spring. So I thought, wow, let me see what I can do about this. And then um, let me just show you that I am an organist myself. So I love the instrument, and I thought I already know the instrument very well because I play it. So this is he and I working on the first, I guess, 10 pages. It's not even finished. I was just sketching, and I was like throwing stuff on the wall to see like what sticks. And then I just took this and I said, Mark, I need your help. Notice I've already said I need your help twice. uh, and Mark started sight reading. Again, this is very courageous for a musician to do. And let me just play a little bit of um, so that was a moment where I had this idea and I really didn't know what is the best way. And then Mark introduced some elements as well. And it completely changed the idea. And this was an exception when I was younger. When I was younger, I was very attached to everything I put on the page, everything I write, everything I have the mind to justify. I didn't allow musicians to change or alter that much. But this little passage that you're hearing here is actually, we already shifted the voicing because Mark was showing me different stops and combinations where, hey, that top note is already covered by a stop. So you can use that top note and that finger for some other notes that will only make the color spectrum more rich. So would I know that if I didn't go to the instrument and work with him? No. Was he the composer? No. But the piece would not, that particular moment, which is where the entire piece landed, it would not have happened in this particular voicing. That just sounds so almost as perfect as it sounds in my mind without Mark's help. That's one collaboration. Another collaboration. Of course, we're in the post-COVID, I guess before COVID-19 now, we're in the middle of COVID-19. So obviously, this seems undoable right now to be sitting, next to someone on an organ bench. But I want to show you the next the next one. The next one was, again, this was actually earlier. This was last year, before all the COVID-19 craziness. And I already felt very isolated without my musician friends around. So I was tasked to compose this solo guitar piece for a star guitarist who could pretty much play anything in the world. Very intimidating. And on top of that, I knew nothing about guitar. And then I started to do my studies. There was apparently not even a textbook about guitar. And then I called up Sharon Isbin. I was like, Sharon, I'm so appreciative of you connecting me to TY. Can you recommend a textbook? Right? I mean, how many of you composers who are writing for instrument that you don't play, you don't know, and it's very difficult to see the choreography of the instrument, that you don't first go to a handbook or two to learn the mechanisms of the instrument. That's like basic chops, right? And that's when I discovered, oh well, there isn't much. Okay, so I called up TY. I was like, I think that's how it went down. I was like, TY, I have no idea what I'm doing. I know you're in the middle of nowhere in China on a tour. He was. And I said, I just want to see how you practice. Like, as basic as that. I do not understand how guitar is played. So the next thing I knew, he sent over 15 videos. 15 from all the way over in China. And I still have them. They're so wonderful. And this is one of the moments, and I'm gonna play this. This is one of the moments where I wrote something and I wasn't sure about the particular articulation that is possible. And then TY got back to me within 2 hours and made this video to show me what I just wrote.
Hi. So, the four chords, if it started eighth note, it should be something like this. So, if it started, I mean, it's like staccato 16th note. Okay. So they could be, or so there are different lengths, and then right now I'm in Grand Rapids. Here is like 0 Fahrenheit, and then so I'll be here for like 3 days, and I can work on the piece, the page, and then also I'll be in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'll be there for another 4 or 5 days. So I'll have more time now. And thank you for your patience.
Oh, correction,
Hi.
correction. So
So
he was in Albuquerque, obviously. Not China, but all the etude video came from China, I believe. And I think TY is here, and he can probably recall a little more. But what I'm these are two of my recent solo works. So this is a very personal collaboration. And what I learned from this experience is that if I reveal my work early on, if I reveal my blind spots early on, most musicians are always ready and willing and very eager to show me. And they've and vulnerability actually reveals strength. I actually have very thick skin. I go up to people and I really don't know what I'm doing. So can you show me? um, what's the worst, right? They'll just tell you, "Yeah, haven't got time for you today. Go get lost." And then you come back. No doesn't mean no. No just means not now. Come back. So what I aspire to do, and this is a bit on the aesthetic uh, aspect of in-person collaborations, is that I was very struck. I was having a Zoom cocktail hour with one of my favorite pianists in the world, Marc-Andre Hamlin, and he just did a interview somewhere. In his new recording, I think, of Cage's prepared piano pieces. So I mean, of course, I love the pieces, and I've known them for many years, since I went to school and studied the pieces. Heard them live a few times. I thought I knew the piece very well, but again, Mark says something, and this happens again. I hear musicians talk about their work, and it's just like, huh, I never knew. I never thought about it this way. And Mark said that the reason that made that piece so he's so delighted and joyful when he plays that piece was because that an entire percussion orchestra is under his fingertips, but they're not hard to play. They're easy to play. So uh, I'm gonna stop a minute. Can you all think about this for a minute? Um, I can only speak for myself, but how many years have I spent in my studio alone? And my ego is as big as the elephant in the room. And I was like, I'm gonna write this piece to impress the rest of the world with its virtuosity and with its well, masculinity and its stoicism and whatever it is, right? Whatever it is that we usually feel. I usually feel when I'm alone, stuck in the studio, on a deadline. Um, but seriously, um, all this is not even about the collaboration. It's not even about the musician. It's so much about me. Um, and what I want to do more in the future when I collaborate one on one with musicians is that I want to be able to achieve that wonderful place where music is served better with easier and more idiomatic technique. Just musicians should enjoy playing my music. And when they enjoy the music and not be so troubled about the techniques and about the uh, about the virtuosity and about putting 100 hours into practicing the piece, um, something else happens, and it's ineffable. So I want to put this idea out there. Like, how many of you have had the experience where there's a little moment in your piece where it's relatively calm, relatively transparent, and every musician's like start sitting on the edge of their chair, and they're just so excited to be just vibrato, just holding a note on the E string, and they've been practicing vibrato for 30 years. They finally get to show off that vibrato. Anyway, so I'm thinking about that, and uh, so
Gee,
yeah, yes,
we have TY is actually here, and
yeah.
I wonder if he wants to tell us about his perspective on working that way with you. It's a really interesting take on collaboration. It's really important, and the idiomatic part of writing for instruments, you're right, liberates the performer to make their own music. TY, do you want to join us?
TY.
Hello, hi everyone. Hey, thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed your talk.
It's not over yet.
Yeah, yeah, I made it sound as if it's over. Good to see you again. Yeah, yeah. Um,
Okay. You're still practicing my piece, right?
right here.
Oh, you see? Hey, I have just been paid the greatest compliment. I don't think TY needs to practice my piece, and he's practicing my piece.
Um, I have to say that it was tough. Okay, so right now I'm very seriously relearning this one because I dropped it for a period of time because of school and stuff. This is such a cool piece, and then as I think everybody knows, we need to expand our repertoire as classical guitarists. And we were first, yeah, like we were collaborating with, not collaborating. We're begging for composer to ask for us, and it's very nice of like how to say yeah, ask me. So what do you like? Well, of course I heard her work on the website, and they're very cool, abstract, but have uniqueness as if this piece. It sounds nothing like any other guitar pieces. But it sounds like her.
Whatever that means, I hope you at least like me. um, Thank you, TY. So actually, I'm not even done with talking about this piece yet. because I think we're about to pivot into the collaboration with culture, which is something that that's also very true and present in these two pieces. Okay, so I'm about to pivot. Before I pivot, I just want to say that for any of you who are interested in working for larger ensembles, larger and as large as an orchestra, one of the things that work very well, pretty much 100% of the time, is to make your music sight readable so that the musicians can concentrate on the music making almost immediately because rehearsal time in this country is so precious. And that has been. Peter, there's some noise here in the room.
I'm looking for it.
Mm.
I'll see if I can find it.
Is TY? Is TY is your microphone still on?
I think he's muted.
Cool. All right. Now I'm going to pivot. I'm pivoted. I have pivoted into collaboration between cultures. So this is a pretty big issue in especially composers who don't look like myself. Last time I checked, I look completely Irish. So why am I not writing Irish music? Right? Can I get some laugh out of this room, please? Thank you. Absolutely. Okay. So people wonder, why don't you write Chinese music? And if I knew this person, I would tell them that first of all, my training is exclusively Soviet, European. Also, it's not that I don't appreciate Chinese music. I grew up with it, and a lot of it. And it's not true what the Westerners and the Western music world, that's not exactly Chinese music. Does that make sense? The Chinese food in China tastes nothing like the Chinese food in the US. Just use that as a reference point. So whenever somebody tells me, okay, what is Chinese music, is so actually there are instrumentalists who has made a point of being that bridge, and that's their life's work, and it deserves a lot of attention and recognition for that. Woman comes to mind, the pipaist woman. I was just talking to her the other day, and but it's repertoire based. Okay, so whenever there is a two culture that are holding on to their authenticity, they will seem inevitably very strange and far away from each other. So I have been very careful in this combination. So in my world, if I'm just mimicking the idea or the surface without making, let me back up a little bit. Mimic the idea of another culture that is holding on to their authenticity, okay? Without making direct reference to the surfaces that define another genre. I think it's disrespectful for the people who are holding on to the authenticity of that culture. And I don't particularly care for lifting other cultures' artifacts and just casually plug it into our Western classical music. I would want to handle that very, very carefully and very, very respectfully. Because sometimes what we get is the sacrifice of the authenticity of the both. So both end up losing their authenticity, and that's again, it's my view. This is my opinion. This is how my ear works. And this is not to say that I have not done a very expected cultural blend, like a Chinese instrument in the Western orchestra, or how about a Chinese melody with a Western instrument, all of that. I've done all of that. And some work I still believe in. Some I don't think I did that very well. I don't think I honored the authenticity or the spirit of the other culture. Now, being a New Yorker, I also have the entire New York cosmopolitan and international demographic culture right in front of my plate. So this collaboration with TY, I guess, what can I write for this young man who could play pretty much anything? By the way, TY won the Guitar Foundation competition, which is like the equivalent of the Clyburn in the guitar world, gold medalist a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and so this is no small deal to write a piece that would be interesting to him. So at the time, I thought to myself, what would be challenging? This guy can play anything technically, right? But what about rhythm? So I had an idea that because I was studying South Indian, mostly Indian classical rhythmic practice, and I was fascinated by that culture. So I'm going to exit this screen share, and I'm going to share a video with you that is the backbone of this piece that I wrote for TY. And you tell me whether that's challenging or not. Bear with me. Share screen. And right here, share system sound. There we go. Fasten your seatbelt, ladies and gentlemen.
Tadim 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 kita tatam tadim 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 kita tatam tadim tadim kita tatam tadim tadim kita tatam tadim tadim kita tadim tadim kita tadim tadim kita tatam tadim tatam tadim tadim kita tatam tadim tatam tadim tadim kita tatam tadim tatam tadim tadim kita tatam tatam tadim tadim kita 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 tatam tadim kita tatam tadim kita tatam tadim tadim kita tatam tadim kita dim tadi kita tak kita tam tak kita dim tadi kita tak kita tam tak kita dim tadi kita tak kita tam tak kita dim tadi kita tak tam tak kita dim tadi kita tak tam tak kita dim tadi kita tam tak kita dim tadi kita tak kita dim tadi kita tak kita dim tadi kita tak tam tak kita
Now he's improvising.
dim tam kita dim tadi tadim kita tam tadi kita tam tadi kita tak dim tadi tak kita dim 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 takitatam 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 tatim takitatam tatim takitatam 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 takitatam
Okay. What had just happened? Yeah. So, I lost my mouth. Here's my mouth. Okay. So, the thing is, it's not that loving a culture as much as you love your own culture is wrong. And how much we know about our own culture and how much we know about other culture, there's no end to any of this. So when we combine cultures, when I think about collaboration, I want to make sure, and then I hope I succeeded in this piece, is that what drives both culture could interact in a way that is not superficial. And so that's been very important to me. And I think my ignorance of the culture, in the end, you know, the artwork, the so-called, what I call the disrespectfulness of the other culture's authenticity, is often the result of some kind of ignorance of mine. I'm sure if I spend, another 20 years learning Indian classical music, I'm gonna continue to discover this amazing art form. But here's where I am. I have the love, I have the passion, I have the zeal to love another art form. So so that's where I am. I'm sure there are a lot more I haven't explored between the cultures and the chemistry and the chemical reactions that are possible, the synthesis that are possible in these two musical cultures that are the Western and the Indian classical, and that are just fertile for exploration and collaboration. So that's the issue of authenticity. So Peter, I see there's like 24, finally I'm seeing there's 24 chat. Um, Anybody has a burning question that I can answer right now in 25 words or less?
I have a question. Okay. The last piece, as I was listening to it, I write a lot of percussion music. I said, this piece would be great to do in percussion. Now, if you did this as a percussion piece, how would that in any way either reflect the culture from which it came or denigrate the culture?
Great question. First of all, I would not choose percussion to be the instrument of this rhythmic idea, because the rhythmic idea is percussive.
Right,
So
but
I think
you could do it on
I could.
percussion.
Oh, definitely. And then that's what they did. That's what they did. And the recitation is just preparation for all the percussion instruments that they end up picking up. So that's true. So and highly recommend checking out Dan Weiss, Weiss, who has been almost translating the conical, which is the recitation of this rhythm, into drum set. And actually, he's not alone. Brooklyn Raga Massive have workshops every week on Zoom on this topic, and world-class musicians have done amazing things with percussion. But what I wanted to transform this rhythmic idea is to make it work for a Western instrument that thrives on playing lyrically, beautifully, and rubato, and without so much, constraints to the rhythmic, the percussiveness of this rhythmic characteristics. So that's when I say collaboration, I want the two to have a interaction, and the interaction is that what's great in the West is that the instrument has all these notes, and all these notes that are very defined. Like the guitar is a fret instrument. So that's a great the strength and the characteristics of the Western instruments. Lots of Western instruments that are fret and that are in tune, mostly in tune, strings and other instruments aside. I mean the vowels aside. However, but if I only conform to the idea that this recitation is percussive, I feel like then I haven't brought in enough of the instrumental part from the West, which the chemical reaction happens if this rhythmic recitation is working with pitches that are identifiable. So that's the part that my ears were looking for. And I knew that that was so difficult to achieve, and only one guitarist that I was working with who could pull this off, and that was TY. I'm not sure that that answers your question, and I think it's a really it's very intuitive. I also I hear this as percussive. Of course, I love it as a percussive instrument. The mouth is turned into a percussive instrument. So I didn't feel like it calls for another percussive instrument. I'm interested in seeing what happens if a melodic instrument, a harmonic instrument, which is what guitar is, can do with what kind of dialogue these two could have. And the dialogue is the piece. So,
Gee, I think it's really great that you're creating something new. Like you mentioned, the Western part of things is the discrete notes, right, and the idea of harmony. So you weren't trying to write an Indian piece in any way, right?
no, I don't think
So
I can.
right. So what you were doing was kind of the sum total of your experiences, and it's clear to me that you've done a lot of research to understand that the rhythm from that point of view too, right? So maybe you can just talk a little bit more about how you find that balance of using employing different things from another culture, but not trying to imitate or rip off another culture.
Ooh. Mm.
25 words or less.
Oh, when you eat a piece of bread, you do not grow a muscle that looks like the bread. That that's
You have
like
words left over now.
ah. I usually over talk and over compose. Very rarely do I under talk. Okay. Um.
But
So
I think that's really interesting what you just said as kind of a joke, but I think it's really true. Maybe you could just elaborate on that, when you eat a piece of bread.
um, I appreciate that, Peter. You think that I did something new. I've been favoring this word renew. Um, and I don't know that we can change it's first of all, it's nearly impossible to change people's mind, and it's even harder to change our own minds about things. Hard enough to change our own minds about things. So I don't think there's much to be changed in an authentic culture that is like it seems like the other for us, the Western classical musicians. But I'm interested in if we put them together, right? What could be renewed? So the word renew, that gets me excited because you don't lose the identity, you don't lose the story. I'm actually quoting Margaret Atwood. She once said that there isn't really a story that needs to be told. Every story has been told, but the great writers, they tell it anew. They tell it like news, and in their hands, the same stories is renewed, and it becomes today and fresh. It's ours. It's our story. So I think about renew. I think about relive. And these are the worlds that I'm inclined to explore. So Mark Paco and we had this wonderful conversation about the piece I wrote for him, and it also incorporated Indian classical music elements. So he asked a very similar question, Peter, actually. I don't know if he's here today. But the question was that, what was the biggest challenge? And I said to him,
Mark is
sometimes
here. Mark is here.
seriously,
Yes, seriously.
hey Mark,
Hi, G.
how's that elbow?
Oh,
Oh God.
that actually happened not far from your apartment.
I didn't do it.
I was up the bike path on the West Side Highway.
Oh God. All right. We have to drink to celebrate your battle wound. But in the meantime, I'm pretty hot on this line of thought. So Mark asked me, what's the biggest challenge to incorporate raga for basically a wind brass orchestra that's activated by fingertips, that's the pipe organ. And I said to him, there's oil and there's vinegar. And if you combine oil and a vinegar, sometimes what you get is a salad dressing. Now, there's nothing wrong with a salad dressing, and there's plenty of applications of a salad dressing. But what does it mean that there is a change in both that is worth this transformation? And I think heat, the process of cooking, that's what is going to change the oil and the vinegar. Any kind of oil and liquid, it will turn into a different substance, and that substance will include both the oil and the liquid. But the heat does the wonder. And where does the heat come from? It comes from the flame in my belly, to echo the beginning of my talk. But the heat also comes from knowledge and practice. My first few projects of imbuing and combining or synthesizing multiple elements that otherwise would not come together was not success. I failed many times. And all I can do is to fail better at this. And I can't say, and only the musicians can tell me whether the musicians I'm writing for, in this case, Mark and TY, only they can tell me whether this collaboration, what it means to them. And that's what I'm interested in. I'm less interested in, oh, here's what I did. Look at me. Look at what I can do. I'm less interested in, I'm more interested in the musician. And then, of course, when the musicians have learned these pieces, they themselves become a collaborator. I can't wait to get this point onto my slide. But, you know, musicians, organizations, everybody that we have the mind to write for, and we're dependent on to make the notes on our pages jump off the page and become reality, become music. Those are the work of musicians. And those are the works of people who enable these musicians to learn our works. And I don't know that you know, people talk about this enough in music schools, that it takes a tremendous amount of risk to do a world premiere of a living composer's work. Nobody knew what they're gonna get, and they all have to learn from scratch. There's no recording to study from. And then where is the composer when the world premiere is supposed to happen? Right? They arrive 3 days before, and then the rehearsal starts in the next hour, and the composer makes an appearance at the first half an hour. Next day, there's another half an hour, and then the next day is dress rehearsal, and then the next day is the show. So this is a real problem. For me, it's a real problem because I just can't wait to share with musicians that I can't wait to tell them that what I love about music and that the reason that I endured so many years of the labor and the solitude of composing, which most of the time does not have any sense of instant gratification, is because of them. It's because I get to imagine, hey, these notes are gonna fly off this page in the hands and the musicianship of so and so, so and so. And that gets me going. And I ask myself this all the time. Like, is it really that I'm stubborn? Well, I am stubborn, you know, but my will can only take me to a certain point. I have to love something. I have to believe in something. I have to be able to envision something. I have to like something enough to endure this much solitude and uncertainty in my work. So, musicians, I've been very, very lucky. But I've also learned my lessons the hard way. I used to hide from musicians. I used to think that they were hostile to me because they didn't like my music or they didn't like me. But you know what's the greatest icebreaker? Hey, can you show me what this sounds like? Just show them. 9 out of 10 times, almost 10 out of 10 times, they get really excited because you paid attention to them. You paid attention to the instrument they love. And so, yeah, I'm very, very fortunate. And I feel like today I'm also surrounded by musicians and, you know, the community. Wonderful feeling, right at home. So how are we doing on time? 4:07. I am debating whether I should skip a slide and just dive straight into the grand finale.
I know that there are a few people who'd love to talk and ask some questions, so maybe the grand finale and we can have the grand inquisition right after that.
All right. The Grand Inquisition. Oh, I'm thinking about Eddie Izzard and his routine on the Spanish Inquisition. No, that's too extreme. Okay. Share screen. And this and system sound. Okay, so hands up, you can see my slide that says the issue of authenticity. Wonderful. Moving forward to the skipping. So this leads me to the work that have sustained me artistically for the last 6 or 7 years. My collaboration with musicians and with, oh, hello. This program's got the mind of its own. Okay, so uh, of course, I've been working, always working. I've been very lucky. I've always worked with musicians of the highest caliber ever since Manhattan School of Music. And then I went to Curtis and boy, the talent in that place. And then I've been very lucky that I have not had a year went by that I wasn't invited to write for a particular group of musicians. So I've had very regular and frequent practice. But the kind of collaboration that vivified my work in the last few years really just started a few years ago. And so I started going to conferences, and I did a lot of theater work. I did opera work, and I started to talk to people in the rooms where it's forced. These suits, they're very intimidating in the conference rooms. The conference people, they organize it so that I am like sitting right in the middle of this conference table as the composer. And I discovered that they have no idea, the big suits, they have no idea what I do, or they don't even know what to think or what to say to me. So that got me thinking, huh, what if I start asking different questions? Are they interested in what I have to say, what I have to review? So I begin revealing. Ever since that, I think the first piece that I can recall that I consciously had to work through how much am I willing to review was my work at the prison, at the Minnesota Correctional Facility at Shakopee. And that's an environment where they don't have to cooperate with me at all. They don't have to take me seriously, which some of them didn't at first. So I got confronted, like right at the beginning. I was in a room with 10 or 11 prisoners, and they, I knew what they did. I understood very well that what got them in the place. And one of them, very suspiciously asked me, "What do you want from us?" And I knew that was the moment that I had to just come clean. And I said to her, and I'm paraphrasing, because I had to really wing it, of course. And I said to her, I'm really not sure. I don't think I have a reason to do what I do, but all I know is that I have been given, and I've been at the receiving end of a tremendous amount of generosity and love. And I don't have to do anything, but I'm here. I'm here to just share what I love with you, which is music. Which today we're talking about counterpoint. Yeah, I taught counterpoint courses in a women's prison. And the entire room went silent. And I think the key word was, I don't have to, but I'm doing it. And I don't really know why I'm doing it. I still don't know why they opened up to me after that. So that project tells me that if I can just be okay with my status of vulnerability and ignorance, and all of the stuff that I carry with me that I don't even know how to put into words yet. If I can communicate that in ways that are transparent, in ways that are simple to understand, in ways that are just true, I think a lot of people would respond strongly to it. with something even more valuable, which I got from the prisoners. If I went in with the intention that I'm going to get the story out of them, what am I going to get? Nothing. They don't have to cooperate with me. They're under no summon to cooperate with me. But having said what I said to them, they started talking. And 2 hours later, my librettist and I, we had enough material to write our opera, which we did. We discovered that they are not animals behind cage, that they're mothers, daughters, sisters. So we decided on a story where one of them, the mother, it's Mother's Day. She's waiting for her annual visit from her daughter. Will the daughter show? The prisoner mother. Okay, so this is what we discovered from my work, and that was so life-changing for me. And I think after that, all my concerns, all my insecurities about, so-and-so might not like me if I do this. I go to an orchestra and they have a function they want me to go to. And I was like, oh, if I say this, if I do this, maybe they'll not like me. Maybe, what can I do to make the organization look great and blah, blah. Forget it. Forget it. I just show up and I just, hey, we have a common goal here. We love music. And what can we say about this? Let's put our minds together. So this graph that you're looking at here was pre-prison visit, the before prison visit, right? Composer in the little corner with our creativity, and then voila, there's the masterpiece, and the musician's like, oh God, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. All right, I'll learn it, I'll learn it. Oh, this is so hard. Oh, I have questions. Should I ask the composer? But if I ask the composer, is the composer gonna be all hostile to me? Is the composer gonna think I'm stupid that I don't know how to read this music? And then the musician present this piece to the audiences that are all part of a community. Community is going to be the key word moving forward. Since COVID-19, the board, the administration, that nurse, and the big picture of the music culture. So what I want to do, and I was very wrong. I think this is closer to what I have in mind about collaboration with bigger organizations. The composer with bellies on fire. The composer can be replaced with artists, all disciplines. Yeah, we're at the generating state. We generate the heat. If composers do not compose work, there will not be any of the musical culture that we celebrate today. So, composer at the middle, and the gear. Too bad this is not an animation. So my fingers are animating right now. So the gear are all turning in a different speed, and they change all the time. And the composers are the gear, the artists are the gear that turns everybody. And you don't know. Maybe the musician will turn it. And in my experience with the two collaborators in the room today, Mark Pako and TY, they also generated some momentum that turned all the other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gear, including mine. So there's all these back and forth. And of course, there's no way to tell which gear is generating the energy, the momentum. But every gear is turning. But the flame is possibly gonna be where it starts. And it's the artists and composers' responsibility to show the world that we have flame in our belly and that we want to collaborate with the musicians and the music public. Peter, I run out of things to say.
Well, you've said a lot, but you've said so much that's so interesting. You know, for me personally, as a composer, it seems to me what you're talking about here with collaboration and what you're bringing to the table is kind of a really stunning combination of enthusiasm and vulnerability, both. You know, there's a kind of honesty and what you were saying in the prison, you know, you could just keep the walls up, but by letting the walls down, you invite people in. And to me, that's something really beautiful that I'm taking away from your talk today. So thank
Thank
you,
you. Thank you,
personally,
Peter.
for me. Yeah. A couple of people had some comments and questions
Mm-hmm.
regarding what you were talking about, kind of cross-cultural composition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'll just read a couple of those comments.
Mm-hmm.
There were two, and then you could kind of ruminate and let us know what you think.
Mm-hmm.
So Stan says, on one level, I agree with what Wang Jie is setting. I can think of many examples of composers using sometimes quite directly musical elements of other cultures. Debussy comes to mind. Regarding jazz, Stravinsky comes to mind. Any thoughts? No need to answer now. Sometimes I wonder about fusion cuisine. Personally, I can't stand it.
uh,
And then let me just read Ben's comment that he makes in response to Stan, and then we can talk. Ben says, I don't know if this directly answers the question directly, Stan, but regarding this authentic approach to material being discussed versus reference, I recalled this line by composer Wieland Hoben. While it is naive or disingenuous to rely on exotic references for effect, being faced with an artistic approach that is in some way very different to one's own should make one realize that other traditions achieve results that one's own cannot. Far from animating the composer to appropriate foreign material, it can show one just how much could still be developed within one's own musical language. So there's a lot there.
mm,
Love to know what you think.
so, um, I'm so glad Stravinsky is mentioned. Stan, thank you. So he's one of my absolute musical heroes, and I think it was also him uh, who said, not in these exact words, that music is not capable of expressing anything else but itself. So the whole slide that I skipped was a philosophical concept from Suzanne Langer, who was like the founding mother of modern metaphysics. And she talked about, elaborated on the idea that music is symbol. It's not really language vernacular. But so like we hear this all the time, right? Music is a kind of language. It's kind of this casual phrase that starts a lot of textbooks for music 101. But I think there's a lot to it. There's a lot more dimensions to this statement. I think all languages are variants of music, contours of languages, especially, and but whatever this cultural idiosyncrasy that our ears can pick up, for me, that sits where the dialects happen. It's a special kind of flavor. And that flavor, I can speak English, and I can more or less pass as a relatively okay English speaker. And I have some mild accents that I'm aware of. I can't hear it very well. But when I speak Chinese, I do not have any accents. That's why I was a broadcaster and I'm a voiceover actress in Mandarin. and I've worked a lot as voice actress because I do not carry an accent. So I think there's a lot to unpack in like, okay, so there's a cultural reference, there's a accent, a lot of performers, actors in particular, they need to learn the accents of their skin color and their face. So I'm just handling it with extra care now that I am at this stage of my creative output. What I want to know is, it's almost Wittgensteinish. Uh, here's here's why this linguistic lineage has come to a dead end, and this is why we're holding on to its authenticity, its accents, its cultural idiosyncrasies, and everything that comes with it. Okay. And then the other cultural heritage is like, oh yeah, we're doing that too. It's not easy to hold on to that thing. A lot of cultures, they just extinct. So these two, you put them together. Whose accent you're gonna use? So so I'm interested in like whether something renews both of them, and that is if I can relive these two cultural elements, and through my reliving, do I have the power, the heat, to transform both into something that can only be comprehended, that is inclusive of both, but can only be comprehended in this final form that I created, having relived both cultural elements. That's the best way I can put it. I mean, I don't know. Tomorrow, I might drink a different brand of coffee, and then I'll be like, I don't know what I was talking about yesterday. I think I'm going full on, Chinese accent. No.
I think that's really great. Um, I think in addition to that enthusiasm and vulnerability, there's a kind of humility in the way that you are thinking about all of these different kinds of music that I think is necessary and really gives your work a lot of integrity in that way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Of course.
This is so important for me. I remind myself all the time that I'm able to get anywhere in my career is because somebody, I don't know who, somewhere sitting on some panel I don't know about, and decide to cut me some slack.
Mm.
This work that we do as artists, it's never gonna it's never over. There's always room for expansion and different types of concentration, you know. And I don't know that I'm done with this period of just taking on everything that comes on my plate. I have a few focus right now, but I'm already operating at my capacity, and this is the work that I have been able to accumulate only up to this point. And this is possibly a good prediction of my future where what I already know I want to expand on. I want to make more, want to make it more rich, and I want to make it more accessible. There's like, it's very three-dimensional, and it's always a network type of, it's never linear. It's not like I've done with my period right now and I'm moving on to the next period. It's not like a slideshow. So I think what I've done in the past will always be with me, and it will hopefully, if I take good care of myself, and if everybody loves me, and then I'll be able to renew, and I'll be able to pass that love through my collaborations with the rest of the world. Right?
That's really beautiful. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Just before, as we wrap up, Paulo had asked if he could ask a question, and I just wanted to make sure that we get a chance to hear from Paolo.
Paolo, ciao.
Hello, Wang Jie. Mwah. Thank you so much. It was really inspiring what you said. I totally agree with you, and it's really beautiful, your idea of collaboration. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Okay. No, I just want to tell you, if I can, a little thing regarding like authenticity, because I'm foreign like you, I'm Italian, and I totally understand your point of view, and it's a very important question that all of us composers and artists, we ask to ourselves. I have the idea that, I mean, listening to your music, for what I heard, I don't know all of your works, but I heard some. I truly feel that your music sounds to me authentically Chinese, but in a good way. I'm not saying in a bad way. So I think that the fact that you, this is not because you try to be Chinese, using Chinese elements or whatever, but because you bring it with yourself, with your music, your past, your experience, and your true self. So I think this is the key. Because I was thinking about even like examples of composers using Chinese elements, like Debussy, Stan was mentioned, Debussy, but also Puccini, for example, in Turandot. Both of them use Chinese elements, but Puccini sounds really Italian, and Debussy still sounds really French. At the same way, I think our music, your music, even if you use Indian element or whatever you want to use, always I think will sound truly your music. That is the key. That is the good thing of what you are doing. And also another thing I want to add very briefly, the idea of collaboration remind me what in visual art some artists already are doing nowadays. In music for us is more difficult. This idea of making the gear moving around us. So it's not only up to us, but we activate something around us. I saw a documentary about a great artist, the Indian, but also British, Anish Kapoor. I don't know if you know him. And they showed his studio. He has like a lot of collaborators. So he just give ideas, and then other collaborators realize his works. Of course, in music, it's not totally possible but this idea to open to other people, to receive influence from other people and give maybe the first input and to make them a work of art together is very fascinating, and maybe it's the future of music. So thank you so much. I don't want to talk too much, but thank you. It was really nice what you said and inspiring.
Thank you, Paulo. And I can talk to you more about this off the meeting, but I think I'm running out of time. I do have a thought which I can't wait to pick your brains. Brains, you do, yeah. Two sides of the brain, yeah. Brains, yeah. So.
Great. This is really fantastic. Thanks so much. If you're just joining us, we're just wrapping up a wonderful talk with Wang Jie, composer, and Fred Child is going to be doing his talk in just a minute. I just wanted to take this chance to say thank you so much for a really inspiring talk and for all of your inspiring questions, and I could just feel the energy, and everybody really got so much out of this. Thank you so much. Let's give a big round of virtual applause.
Thank you, everyone. That was fun. I can see all of your faces, which means a lot to me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you again. Thank you again.
Peter, I think we lost your audio.
Oh, yes. I muted myself, but now I am unmuted and in full voice. So welcome. If you're just joining us, we were just finishing up a talk with composer Wang Jie, and we are going to be joined very shortly by Fred Child, who hosts a performance today. And I just wanted to introduce myself or reintroduce myself. I'm Peter Askham, and I'm the artistic director of the Next Festival of Emerging Artists. And this is a festival for early career musicians and composers and choreographers getting started on careers of their own. We're really interested in giving everybody all of the different pieces of the puzzle, artistic, business-wise, entrepreneurial, and different perspectives, especially now of thinking about what does it mean to have a career in music in these really challenging times that we find ourselves in. So we have many, many great artists lined up for you. This is the first week of the festival. Please join us the next 3 weeks for events on Tuesdays and Thursday. And many great perspectives, many great artists will be joining us. One of which I'm sure that you're tuning in to hear is Fred Child of Performance Today. And when we were putting together all of the wonderful guest artists who are going to be joining us, I was so excited that Fred agreed to join us. And there's so many things that he could talk about that I think are really fascinating. He's had an incredible career and knows so many people and so much music and has had all these experiences. But it said a lot to me that he wanted to talk about how to help artists tell their own stories. So who are you as an artist? How can you tell your story more effectively? And I thought this is incredibly important. Number one, for artists, it's so easy to just have a bio, which is a list of things, and then expect people to just read the list, be inspired, and throw money at you. That's wonderful if it works that way. Not always. So practically, I think that that's really wonderful that he's agreed to talk to us about that. He certainly knows what people are interested in hearing about, what stories are appealing. But another thing that I thought was really interested was that this is what he chose to talk about. So he is really interested in helping artists tell their own stories. And I think that that says a lot about who he is as a person too. So I was very excited and moved, and it's been wonderful to get to know him a little bit. And I'm just really inspired by his generosity of spirit. And I want to welcome Fred Child to speak with you all today. Hi, Fred. Great to see you.
Hi, Peter. Thank you. Thank you for your really kind words. And I just want to acknowledge the fire in the belly that Wang Jie just provided.
Amazing.
That kind of passion and commitment, first of all, from her personal story that started off her presentation, but then swinging up through what it means to bring that into work and to collaborate with everybody and anybody and everybody. I found that in the work that I do. I found that really inspiring. So a little bit of a pivot maybe from fire in the belly to some real practical issues for at least a little bit here. And this question of who are you, I have to say this is something I am grappling with very much in my professional life and in my personal life in a lot of ways. And my goodness, these events of the past few months have really fueled some of that for me. And this is, what I'm about to do is a version of a talk that I've done for the past 5 or 6 years for different groups of emerging composers and performers at conservatories mostly. But I realized that in the last 3 months, a lot of what I've said in the past has either become outdated or just flat out wrong. And over the past couple of days, I've kind of poured through this. I've done some updating, I've done some rethinking. But in the spirit of what Wang Jie was just talking about, I would invite your collaboration as we go through this over the next hour, hour and a half. I would invite you to listen really critically to what I'm saying, to draw on your own experience. And then as we get toward the Q&A at the end, bring the hardball stuff, bring your real talk. And it's entirely possible that I will learn more than anybody here today. I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm just looking around the room at the folks who are here. Some of you, just as Wang Jie had this experience, I know some of you and many of you I don't. I'm imagining a collaboration with this group that's in this room, some kind of ensemble put together with this exact group, and thinking how exciting that might be. I see violinists, at least one bass player, several cellists, singers, composers, media folks, at least one filmmaker, several conductors, guitarist TY, who spoke a little bit earlier. And as Peter is putting together this festival of emerging musicians and creators in this realm, you are the future. This group right here, right now, you are the future of this art form. Among composers, conductors, pianists, instrumentalists, and everybody, and I have to say, I love seeing the diversity of this group: geographical diversity, ethnic diversity, age diversity, various levels of career experience diversity. You're a self-selecting group to be here. And the fact that you chose to be here says to me several things about you: that you are among the more innovative, among the more ambitious, among the more kind of never say die, never take no for an answer, among the more creative and expressive artists and up-and-coming artists of our time. And again, I look around this room and I see the future of this art form. Something that I tell people in these talks and I say on the radio, part of the reason that I think the future of this art form is assured is that there's, again, this room is the perfect example. There's more talent in up and coming generations now than ever before. I talk to professors at conservatories around the country, and this is specifically about instrumentalists. They say, thank goodness I don't have to audition against today's young players. The talent level is incredibly high, not just on the technical level. The technical level of players has gone up incredibly in the past 20 years of musicians in their teens and 20s, but so has the maturity level. A lot of top young players have more access to better teaching than ever before. So I'm thrilled about this. I mean, there's been a lot of chatter about, is classical music. We could talk about the term classical music and what that means and doesn't mean. But is classical music dying? More about that in a moment. But I'm just thrilled, given what I see among young up-and-coming artists of all kinds, that the future of this art form is assured, despite all the obstacles. I mean, pre-2020 and in 2020, the future of this art form is brighter than ever. As a listener, I'm heartened about this. As a music lover, I'm heartened about this. And in my professional capacity, I have absolute confidence in this. Some of you were around in 1997. A book came out called Who Killed Classical Music? Anybody remember this? It launched thousands of kind of hand-wringing conversations and editorials and think pieces about, are we seeing the death throes of classical music? And again, I think we're actually entering the golden age of this art form. And on top of that, here's something that makes me profoundly sad. In today's world, and this is to go back to those compliments I just kind of gave you one after another, all those kind words, all those compliments. It's not enough to be innovative, to be talented, to be ambitious, to be creative, to be expressive. None of those guarantee a career. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody is there, does it make a sound? Well, if a composer writes a piece and nobody plays it, does the music exist even? If a conductor only ever conducts in front of a mirror, if an instrumentalist only ever plays in the practice room, I mean, even more than any tree in the forest, you need to be heard. You need to get your work in front of ears. And of course, and I want to acknowledge this, there are many different ways of measuring success. Personal satisfaction with your own output and expression. Measuring your work by your own standards. Measure it by your colleagues' responses. Measure it by commissions you get if you're a composer. Measure it by appointments and gigs, posts, scholarships, awards, the amount of money you make. the legacy that you're leaving for other people. You don't have to put your energy into anything other than writing music, playing music, conducting, creating your work in your corner of this art form. You don't have to do anything else. But if you want those gigs, commissions, appointments, awards, if you want to be heard, if you want to be not even necessarily get approval, but at least get some attention, there are some things that you can do to make that more likely. First and foremost, and most glibly, make great music. Easier said than done. I have no competence to help you on that front. Wang Jie can help a lot of fellow composers. Peter and the many folks he has assembled for the next festival can help you out with that, and your many teachers and colleagues right here in this room. But maybe I can offer some insights on a different front. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to expand my screen one more time here. How many of you, I know that I see a lot of people in the room at a lot of different levels. How many of you have done media interviews in one form or another, or had pieces written about you and had people ask you questions about your work? Just kind of trying to gauge the room. Yeah, keep those hands up because I'm kind of scrolling through, seeing everybody. Okay, nice mix of people in different stages of career. Oh, you know, maybe a follow-up question. Among those of you who have been interviewed by somebody, did the interviewer have a clue about you and your work and the world you work in? Thumbs up or thumbs down? In this realm, a lot of times those pieces are written for publication journals or now even in social media, that a lot of that work is done by people who just don't know this arena or this art form or its history, and certainly not what people are trying to do today. So with that in mind, what is this narrative about you and about your work that's out in the world? How do we answer this question? Who are you? So what's your story? Well, in fact, there are a multitude of stories. There's your story. There's the story you tell yourself about who you are and what your work is. There's stories your family tells, there's stories your friends tell, colleagues tell, stories your teachers tell, I don't know, orchestra managers tell, if that applies, the stories that concert venues tell, program books tell, newspapers, TV, radio, the stories, social media, the story TikTok tells about you if you're on TikTok. And in my experience, a lot of musicians for a long time, and this is changing, but a lot of musicians assume that that story is out of their control and would prefer to complain about bad writers or interviewers who ask the wrong questions. But there are some simple things that are in your control. And Peter mentioned one of the two main things I want to focus on. How can you open doors for yourself in the world of media? What's your story? What's the narrative about you in the world? Who's telling that? Who's shaping that? You can leave that up to other people, or you can take it into your own hands in some fairly simple ways. You can have a great deal of control and influence over that. It begins with your bio. It seems like one of the most simple, one of the most basic things. But as somebody who's worked in media for more than 3 decades, I cannot overemphasize how important this is and the impact that this can have. And I want to try to directly illustrate that for you here. I mean, you know, your bio goes in programs when concerts happen. So it's the first thing an audience might learn about you, read about you. But it's also often the first thing that people in the music business learn about you. People go to your website if you have a website, or they check out your bio wherever they can find it. And again, another question worth asking, I'm going to expand the screen again so I can see you all. How many of you are at a point where you have a written bio for yourself? Yeah, a lot. And how many at this point in your career do not? And of course, either answer is fine. It's where you are, and it's totally cool. Wherever you are is where you are. Cool, cool, cool. Well, let's talk about this. So what is a bio? Let me read you an example of what I often see and for what often passes as a bio. The names have been changed here to protect the innocent, but this is taken from a real bio on a real website. And by the way, it's from somebody whose work I admire, but this is the bio. A native of Los Angeles, and I'm making up a name here, Aria Polyrhythm has been establishing herself in Southern California as a successful composer and pianist. Her music has been described as, quote, truly beautiful and inspired and explosive. She's received commissions from the New York Youth Symphony, the Aspen Summer Music Festival, the Los Angeles Philharmonic Committee, the Argus Quartet, Peabody Camerata, Trio Appassionata, the LA County High School for the Arts, and Sandbox Percussion, among others. Aria has won numerous awards and honors, including a Charles Ives Scholarship from the American Academy of Arts and Letters, a Presser Foundation Award, New York Youth Symphony's First Music Commission, a BMI Student Composer Award, multiple awards from the National Association of Composers, and that list continues and continues and continues. Aria, next paragraph. Aria has been a composition fellow at the Los Angeles Philharmonic's National Composer Initiative, the Aspen Summer Music Festival and School, the Norfolk Chamber Music Festival, Bennington Chamber Music Conference, has attended the Bang on a Can Summer Music Festival. She's been artist in residence at the Birdcliff Art Colony, the Kimmel Harding Nelson Center, and that list goes on and on and on. Aria holds degrees in composition and piano performance from the Peabody Institute of the Johns Hopkins University and the University of Southern California, where she's currently pursuing a DMA, Doctor of Music in Music Composition. As a new music pianist, Aria has dedicated herself to commissioning and premiering new piano works. She's the pianist and founding member of the LA ensemble Boulez Punks. I made up that name too. All right, so, and let me go back to seeing all of you. And let me just open this up, as a matter of fact. What do you remember about Aria Polyrhythm?
Punks.
Punks, which is the part I made up.
Something about Los Angeles.
Boulez Punk. Yeah. I shouldn't have made up such a memorable name for the very last thing. Giancarlo says lots of listing. Yaz says long list of things that should be in a CV. LOL.
Accolades.
The first thing she said, which was Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember anything else.
Gotcha. Mark says, I remember native of. Kate remembers a list of accolades. Exactly.
Hi, Fred. How are you?
Hey, is that Ching?
Yeah.
Ching.
Yeah. Hi. I'm so glad you mentioned this bio thing because, I have been obtaining, wanted to see other people's bio, but I find it very powerful actually is to cite or include the reviewer's comment in bio. I find that is very powerful.
And Aria, I'm using a pseudonym here, did start with a little bit of that. Her music has been described as truly beautiful and inspired, and that was from I Care If You Listen, and explosive, and that was from Gramophone magazine. I left out the citations, and those are actually excellent citations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Ching. And by the way, Ching is quite an accomplished media professional. I'm honored to be appearing with Ching as part of her interview series coming up on Monday afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern. She's on YouTube as Jewel Media, Juhl, Jewel Media. She's done an amazing series of live interviews. Wu Man, the pipa player Wu Man, who Wang Jie mentioned, I just saw them talk recently, and Ching, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm already learning a ton from you about visual media, which is brand new to me. Thank you, Ching.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's Peter posting a link about that. Okay, so for me, this bio, I mean, it's far from the worst. And again, it's a real person. It's based on a real person's bio that I've paraphrased and changed a lot of the names. And it's somebody whose work I admire, but I'm looking at this and I don't remember much about this person. I don't have a sense of who this person is. I see a bunch of awards, and boy, did I skip a lot of things on the list. But if it's an interviewer trying to learn about you, what does the interviewer learn? The average concert goer now knows what about this person? A grant committee sees this person distinguished from other applications. How? The interviewer, what questions can I ask this person? How does this shape my story? It does not shape a story about this person. Your bio, and again, this is from my experience reading bios and choosing who to interview and figuring out what to ask people, your bio has more impact than you can even imagine. It shapes your narrative from the very beginning. Let's take a look at, and I'll do some screen sharing here. Let's take a look at what I think are some more effective bios and see how they shape the narrative about these people out in the world. And maybe this is no surprise. Let me pull up the right thing here before I do a little screen sharing. Okay, and now back to Zoom. And now let me find the screen share button. Boink. There we go, share. Wang Jie, who was on right before me, who, by the way, Wang Jie and I are married. Some of you know that, some of you don't. Now you all do. And first of all, we'll come back to this, I think. You'll notice there's the biography and there's the standard bio. We'll come back to that. Here's the biography, and I'll pick some highlights. Part cartoon character, part virtuoso, musical whiz kid Wang Jie has been nudging serious music and its concert audiences into spectacular frontiers over the past few seasons. Her From New York with Love transformed a classic percussionist into a dervish-like rock star. Her chamber opera, Flown, dramatized the end of a rocky love affair by having the two pianists attack each other and their shared instrument. Despite having the worst title in the history of music, Oboe Concerto for the Genuine Heart of Sadness channeled the power of the League of Composers Orchestra into an orgiastic whirlwind. An unexpected collaboration with comedy writer Paul Simms inspired a song cycle about dying funny that coaxed belly laughs from an otherwise sedate Opera America audience. Not one to let herself off the hook at her Carnegie Hall debut, she shape-shifted into a monkey god while leading performers of her concert opera From the Other Sky. There's a touch of glorious madness to Jie's work, but her colleagues and mentors at the Curtis Institute of Music, the Manhattan School of Music, and the NYU PhD program have been long aware of the skill, theatricality, and method behind it. Now, as you can see, there are paragraphs and paragraphs beyond that, and far beyond standard headshot pictures as well. But as a reader of this, I have a sense of the person now. I have a sense of some character. There's a sense of humor, there's self-deprecation. Oh, but by the way, there's some things that you would normally get in a list. She's had a Carnegie Hall debut. She went to Curtis and MSM, NYU PhD program. The credentials are there, but it's not just a dry list of credentials. It's couched in a really fascinating, inviting way. You can see this paragraph down here. After a successful escape from a military-run kindergarten, Jie's parents decided that a dose of discipline was necessary to manage the 4-year-old's oversized frontal lobe. And you heard Jie talk about this. They plopped their shrimpy child in front of renowned composer and pianist Yang Li-ching. So there's that character in the biography, then there's the standard bio. At the forefront of the younger generation of American composers, Wang Jie has emerged as one of the most evocative musical voices. Ranging from elegant to campy, her works are powerfully engaging, richly orchestrated, and rhythmically vibrant. One day she spins a few notes into large musical forms. The next she calls zodiac animals to the opera stage, a rare trait in today's composers. And now, just notice the wording here. Born in Shanghai shortly after the Cultural Revolution, Ms. Wang was raised in an era of breathtaking economic and cultural expansion. She was a known piano prodigy by the age of 5. Okay, so how does this shape the story about her that's out in the world? Well, WQXR wrote about her. They begin with a quote, which is not attributed, but which was lifted from American Composers Orchestra. She knows how to take a few notes and spin them into a large form, a rare trait in today's composers. Composer John Corigliano speaking about Wang Jie. Then, born in Shanghai shortly after the Cultural Revolution, Wang Jie was raised during an era of breathtaking economic expansion. This story, published by a major reputable musical organization, simply lifts the bio verbatim. You want to have power over the story that's being written about you? Write exactly what you want to have printed, because writers, man, am I about to make a big generalization, are lazy. They might have 15 assignments. The editor says you got to have this one done by tomorrow and that one done by Thursday, and it's not finished yet, and you're late, and you're behind. Oh, I better find the bio and just lift it. So that's about as direct an example as you will see. And I mean, it just goes on for several paragraphs, which are lifted straight from Jie's bio. Another example here. Oh, here I actually found a citation from the American Composers Orchestra with John Corigliano. So they lifted something from one website and lifted something from her bio. Okay, that's one example. Pianist Jonathan Biss. This is, so many of you may know him, some may not. Jonathan is a fantastic classical pianist. He plays a certain amount of new music and has done some commissioning. Best known for his Beethoven recordings, Schumann recordings, the straight ahead repertoire. He's now one of the co-artistic directors at the Marlborough Festival. He teaches at Curtis. He's got a major label recording contract, and this is his official bio. Jonathan Biss was born in 1980. His professional debut preceded this event by several months, when he performed prenatally the Mozart A Major Violin Concerto at Carnegie Hall with the Cleveland Orchestra under the direction of Loren Mazel. That is about as fascinating an opening sentence. Oh, and then it has a footnote. Okay, so let's scroll down. What's the footnote? The New York Star Bulletin observed when visibly pregnant violinist Miriam Fried was extremely, visibly pregnant violinist Miriam Fried was extremely persuasive, and the more obviously active soloist, it was impossible not to be moved by Mr. Biss's more modest contribution. Quiet, really very quiet, but with an inner conviction which was quite haunting. So again, like Wang Jie, a very serious artist, educated at the highest level institutions, but who's exhibiting a sense of humor, self-deprecation, getting credentials in there, but in a way that immediately attracts my attention, makes me interested in the person, and I think, like, wow, what a cool story. His mother was pregnant playing violin on stage at Carnegie Hall. Where does that story show up? New York Times, when Jonathan Biss had his Carnegie Hall debut in 2011, some interview, some people commenting on his work, and then this paragraph. Mr. Biss traces his history at the Hall to a prenatal experience. His mother, violinist Miriam Fried, played a Mozart concerto there with the Cleveland Orchestra when she was pregnant with him in 1980. Straight out of his bio to the pages of the New York Times. And that story from Jonathan's bio has basically become the lead about him in almost every single story written about him for the past, I don't know, 12 years, 15 years. Why? Because he put it at the top of his bio. That's why. That's the power your bio can have. You know what? Okay, Gustavo's got a great bio on his website because he can afford it. Most of us cannot afford this level of yeah. All right, wait. It's a fantastic multimedia bio with embedded videos and fantastic writing, but none of us, including me, are at a place where we can afford that. Okay, let's go back to this, and I'll stop screen sharing for the moment. Did I stop screen sharing? Did I do that successfully?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so so I mean, those are extremely direct examples of the bio that you write that you control exactly and directly, controlling the narrative about you, telling your story in the world. So, like I said, it's not enough to be innovative and talented and creative and expressive, whether you're a composer, pianist, conductor, instrumentalist. This makes me sad as a music lover. In some kind of ideal world, in a meritocracy, that would be true. The music business is not a meritocracy. That should be blindingly obvious, but my experience is that the world of classical music operates even more on a star system than the world of pop music. That the known names get more attention and more attention and more attention, and it is so hard to break through, even in the era of social media when you can have your own platform. Classical music operates on the star system. There's a young man, well, now not so young anymore. There's a gentleman I know who's a pianist who was written up in the New York Times when he was 10 years old, an absolute prodigy. I met him about 25 years ago. At that point, he was in his late 20s. I was hosting a show on WNYC, the radio station in New York. He came on for a live appearance. He played the Appassionata Sonata by Beethoven, played the hell out of it. And right after that, he and his fiancée got married live on the air on our radio show. It was this really dramatic moment. I loved his playing. It was a really fun wedding. I asked him for a bio, and he said, no, I don't have one. I'm not going to make one. I don't want one. He said, it's enough that I play well. That will make my way in this world. He does have a website. I looked at his website this morning, and it mentions concerts that he has coming up in 2013. Like I said, it makes me really sad, and I don't want to say it's as simple as this, because his story, like any human being's story, is complicated. But he wanted to believe that his merit as a pianist, which was prodigious, was enough. It has not yet been. So if you're sending music to an orchestra, if you want to get noticed by a festival, a presenter, stand out as part of a grant proposal, in a competition, the first thing the jury learns about you before they hear you play, they read your bio. If you're going to do an interview, or if you're trying to get somebody in the media to pay attention, first thing a reporter reads about you or a writer reads about you is your bio. This is where your story in the world begins. It seems incredibly reductive to boil it down to this. And I've been kind of turning this over and over in my head, especially in the last few months. Like, is this still true? in this world that is changing so fast, not just the kind of cataclysms that are churning our world, but the way media is changing so quickly. Is this still true? I'm dying to hear your experiences about this and your perspective on this, but I believe this is still true. I am in an extraordinarily privileged position to have some say about who, I mean, I host a radio show that's on coast to coast. And if I want to interview somebody, they get on the air. What's the first thing I do? I look at a bio. I also listen to performances. I listen to recordings. I watch stuff on YouTube. I try to keep track of every social media channel, but I read a lot of bios, and some capture my attention and some don't. I'm not going to pick anybody out and name any names. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but it may or may not be illustrative to look at bios of yours if you have them. I see a lot of people I know here in this group and many I don't. Does anybody want to do that? If not, that's totally okay. If you'd rather take that into the woodshed and do that in the woodshed, totally get it, totally support that. But if anybody wants to do that, I'm totally up for doing that in a supportive way.
Fred, I just wanted to mention
Yes.
that we will be saving some time at the very end after 5 o'clock, after 6 o'clock for just the students of the festival. And so if any of you would feel more comfortable in kind of a more closed setting, I just wanted to bring that up too.
Yeah. Yeah, it does not have to be here and now in front of everybody. That's available if you want to. And you know what? Having said that, you know what? Let's take a look at mine, which is not perfect and which I have been grappling with. Let's take a look at mine right now and critique it together. All right, let me go back to the right screen. Let me do, okay, share screen, share. Here we go. The website starts off with about the show. And here we go, about the host. Fred Child loves music and the outdoors, Italian cheese, English soccer, flying, baseball, and cardamom. Since 2000, Fred has been the host of APM's Performance Today, the most listened to classical music radio show in America. Fred is also the commentator and announcer for Live from Lincoln Center, the only live performing arts series on television. Fred also hosts musical events on stages around the country, working with major orchestras and festivals and connecting with audiences coast to coast. Beyond the world of classical music, Fred hosted NPR's Innovative Creators at Carnegie, a program of wide-ranging performers in concert, including Brian Wilson, David Byrne, Dawn Upshaw, Youssou N'Dour, Caetano Veloso, Emmylou Harris, and many more. Fred was music director and director of cultural programming at WNYC in New York, host of a live daily performance and interview program on WNYC, and for 10 years, a host at Oregon Public Broadcasting. I see some lists. He's done this and that. His work has appeared here and there, blah, 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 blah. While growing up in Portland, Oregon, Fred studied classical piano. He also dabbles in guitar, percussion, and bagpipes. His percussion band opened for the Grateful Dead at the Oakland Coliseum. He's narrated works at the Aspen Festival, with the Virginia Symphony, with the U.S. Marine Band, and at the Round Top Festival. His rare musical performances in public include percussion with Sharon Isbin and piano four hands with Andre Michel Schub. He appears as an actor in a video commissioned by Philip Glass. Fred loves baseball, throws right, bats left, soccer, fan of Tottenham Hotspur. He's an avid rock climber, licensed private pilot, certified scuba diver. His better half is composer Wang Jie. They make their musical home in New York with a musical Sealyham Terrier named Pilot. All right. If I'm going to take shots at somebody else's bio, let's take some shots at mine right here, right now. Let's see. Let me stop share. let's see, I see some, Paulo has written a few things here. Regarding some ways to be known publicly sometimes makes me desire to be private and reserved. I know I'm wrong about this. What do you think about this? Paulo, oh my goodness. I've only met you a little bit, Paulo, but man, have you touched a nerve with me with this. Because despite the fact that I host a daily national radio show and I get up on stage and host events, and I am intensely introverted. I'm not naturally given to sharing my feelings and emotions. And this, Paolo, what you're talking about here, man, that conflict is very much alive for me. I don't want everybody to know about me. I don't want to share everything. I don't want stalkers. I want my life to be my life. I want my private relationships to stay private. My bosses at work want me to put videos up on Facebook every day of just my average life. I don't want to do that. And yet, what is the story about me that's out in the world? What is the story about me that I want to be out in the world? There doesn't have to be an exact one-to-one correlation between those two. Who am I in the deepest, most personal moments, and who am I in the world? Well, I have thoughts and ideas and desires and ambitions about both of those. At least for me, and Paulo, this is what I'm having a really strong reaction to what you said. There's not always a one-to-one correlation. There absolutely are parts of myself that I have not and will not share with the world. Then there are people like Ned Rorem. Ned Rorem was a composer who was famous not just for his work, but for his diaries, multiple volumes of which were published and which became famous for his musical insights, but also for sharing sometimes graphic details of his private, personal, and sometimes sexual life. I'm not Ned Rorem. I mean, and Ned Rorem was doing this 40, 50, 60 years ago. I'm not going to do that. There are other people today who do that. Paulo, I think you and me are not those people. And if we're going to be doing this work, if we want to be part of the world, there is a story and there are stories about us out in the world, and we can choose to shape those stories or let other people say whatever they want. I choose to take some effort to shape the story. I know I don't have total control, but I want to have some. And the times when I have been interviewed, almost every single time people ask me about playing in a band that opened for the Grateful Dead. Oh, that's unusual for somebody who's in the world of classical music. What kind of band were you in? What kind of music did you play? What was the band called? What was it like? Did you meet Jerry Garcia? Almost everybody has asked me about that. People ask me about playing the bagpipes. People ask me about, I don't know, flying small private planes. My bio, as I'm rereading it, doesn't have the kind of sparkling personality of Jonathan's or Wang Jie's, but it has enough elements to give somebody some questions to ask. Let's see, Evan Kahn is here. Evan is a cellist, and Evan and I worked together a fair amount because he was a young artist in residence on my radio show, and we traveled together and played some concerts. And oh, it scrolled and I lost your comment, Evan. Here it is. Oh, I love your bio. Thank you, Evan. That's kind of you. If the ideal bio is gripping and quotable for publication, then maybe we can edit it to have more parts in a narrative structure instead of being expository. Yes. Beautifully said. And that's something I love about both the bios of Wang Jie and Jonathan Biss. They're not afraid to just make assertions and say, this is who this person is. This is what this person's work is like. This is what characterizes this person and this person's work. Sometimes with a citation to a reviewer who wrote about it, sometimes just stating it as if it's fact in that kind of narrative form that you're talking about, Evan. Ching, is a written comment from Ching. Thank you, Fred, for talking about the bio. I read bios of people because I need to host them to be in my talk show. Yes, it's such a simple thing to have a bio, long and short, for different usage. Yeah. Kate says, I agree with Evan. I'm curious about how you pivoted from studying performance to broadcasting, and if you could make that part of the narrative somehow. Ah, I love that, Kate. Since you include information about your early life studying music and your experience broadcasting. Kate, I never thought of that. I love that. Thank you. Like I said, I might learn more than anybody from this session. Wang Jie says, Fred, darling, but you never forgot a face and a musician you've worked with. Well, that's changing as I get older, my dear. Yeah, Kate, that has, your comment has been deposited. Yeah. And it's kind of an accidental story, and I won't go into all the details here, but yeah, I started broadcasting when I was a student at Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon. I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I wasn't a good enough pianist to major in piano performance. I was really at loose ends, just kind of a general studies student taking whatever classes every semester. There was a student-run radio station. Again, incredibly lucky to be at a place where I could just sign up and say, can I be on the student-run radio station? They were like, yeah, take a jazz shift Wednesday morning, 8 o'clock. Okay. And I have a vivid memory of the first time I went on the air. I watched somebody do it like 8 weeks in a row before I worked up the nerve to do it myself. LPs, this is back in the early 80s. 2 turntables and a microphone. Coltrane recording, and I had the next thing queued up, and the Coltrane came to an end. I turned down the pot, opened my microphone, and I literally did this for about 10 seconds. I stared at the microphone in utter terror. This is an 8-watt radio station. There's probably 3 people listening at any given moment just on campus. It doesn't even reach beyond campus. I was terrified. I turned off the microphone and played the next record. That was the beginning of my broadcast career. Perfect place to learn broadcasting, because I could make every mistake, and I did make every mistake, and it didn't really matter because there's 3 people listening at any given time. So a nutshell version of it. But then I started working at Oregon Public Broadcasting, and I got turned down the first time and applied again a year later, and I got into it. I already had the love of music. Took 10 years of piano lessons. It was kind of the basis of my getting into music. I already had that. I found this completely surprised me. That not only did I love the stories about music and the people behind the music, I loved sharing those stories. And then I'm thinking of Wang Jie's comment earlier about failing, just recognizing that that's a part of the process, failing again and failing better as much as you can every time. First interview I did was with a pianist, a jazz pianist and composer in Portland, Oregon, who's still one of my heroes, not that well known nationally. Dave Frischberg is his name. I wrote these kind of quirky, funny jazz songs like Peel Me a Grape and My Attorney Bernie. And he helped with some of the Saturday morning cartoon stuff. he and his friend Duro, last name, I'm blanking on the first name, but he and his friend wrote things like, I'm just a bill, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill, Saturday morning stuff. And I interviewed him. We're on the phone. I had a few questions written down. I'm incredibly nervous because I've loved his music for 10 years. And I want him to like me, just like Jie was saying. I mean, this is human. I admired him so much. I wanted him to like me. And I got nervous and flustered and I stumbled. We're not live on the air. We're just recording it. And at a certain point I said, I'm sorry. I know I'm not doing very well here. It's my first ever interview. And he said, "Oh, you're doing great. You've got just what's your next question? I'm really curious. You're asking interesting. Well, yeah, we're just talking. Not a big deal." If he had been a different person, if he had said, "Yeah, you're right. See you later," it's possible I never would have tried again. So now I admire him on multiple levels, as a pianist and composer, and as a human being. Dave Frischberg is his name. Just looking down the comments again from G. Fred got 4 minutes, 33 seconds right. First time on the radio. Yes. Jerry Ho, conductor Jerry Ho. How should we deal with the length of the bio? I was so glad to meet you and work with you, Jerry, on stage at the Grand Teton Music Festival in Jackson Hole several summers ago. Jerry, are you still in Houston? I'm not sure exactly where you are, but
yeah, I'm still here in Houston.
Nice. Teaching at Rice?
Still teaching at Rice.
Fantastic.
Still at the Grand Tetons.
Fantastic.
And, yep.
So how should we deal with the length of the bio? Do you need to pile the accolades or credentials up front if they're skimming? Or is it simply having a great hook to encourage the reader to actually take the time to read it all? No right and no one answer to that question. You might have noticed that both Wang Jie and Jonathan Biss had very long bios. Jie has two very long bios. And in any one sitting, I've probably never read through them in one single sitting, but I read the paragraphs, different paragraphs, different times I pick them up, and that's fine. Actually, let me show you another example that's kind of the opposite extreme. Let me pull this up. Did I keep this page open? I did. Kelly Hall Tompkins, an American violinist who lives in New York. All right, let me go back to Zoom and hit the screen sharing. This was a really interesting question, Jerry. Okay, so here's the front page of her website. Ching, you were saying you liked press quotes. Well, here's a bunch of press quotes. Impressive, says the Strad magazine. Honorarium winner from the Naumburg competition. American Record Guide says expressively wrought with rich tone colors. Fanfare magazine, nice review from Fanfare. And then just a few bullet points. New York Times, New Yorker of the Year. Whoa, that makes me want to know more. WQXR, 20 for 20. I know that list, like 20 interesting people in 2020. That's kind of cool. Trailblazing entrepreneur of classical music and social justice. That makes me want to know more. And then a quote from the New York Times. In the Broadway revival, Fiddler on the Roof, title role, Kelly Hall Tompkins, the versatile violinist who makes the music come alive. Just a few words on the front page. I'm into it already. If I'm interviewing her, I got 4 questions already. What was it like playing? What was it like being the fiddler in Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway? How does that connect with your classical training? What's your interest in social justice? How do music and social justice connect for you in your experience? What are some of those experiences? That's just the front page. This is kind of like a mini bio for Kelly Hall Tompkins. It's got a nice picture, obviously a New Yorker, given that looks like a New Yorker given that background in that stairwell. I'm already into it. So there's the long form bios that Jie and Jonathan Biss have that totally suck me in. And this, I mean, this isn't even a bio. This is just the front page. I'm already there with her. I already want to know more. I want to hear her recordings. I want to hear her talk. I'm into it. So these are two opposite extremes of ways to do it. You know, now that I look at it, I actually don't like the font. This is super picky, but the font that she's using for the quotes, it doesn't pop to my eye. I have to kind of work to read the words, expressively wrought with rich tone colors. Change the font. Beyond that, it's great. All right, let's stop sharing. Let's go back to the group. Another comment from Ching. Wang Jie gave me 4 versions of her bio: short, mid-short, and long. Super helpful. As a musician and artist, we need to make our presenter's life as easy as possible. Well said, Ching. Don't make the media people who want to write about you work. Make their lives easy. Also, we need to promote the event, our event, using social media, emails, and call our contacts for support. And Ching, I could be doing a better job promoting my event with you on Monday. You're so right about that. Jerry, I don't know, does that approach an answer to the question you had about length of bio?
Yeah, I mean, I had some comments about a bio when I had some people looking over, and it's just like you sort of bury the lead or some of the accomplishments that I had, and they said, you know, you should put them all at the very top. And then of course I had my lovely wife read it, and she was like, why do you have all this stuff at the top? I really don't care. I want to know more about you. So
I have to say I'm with your wife on this one, Jerry.
yeah.
The standard advice from classical music publicists is exactly what you just said. Put the biggest credentials, list them all right at the top.
Yeah.
A list doesn't grab me. I want some human interest. I want to know something about who you are. Everybody has a list in their bio. I don't want a list up front. Totally subjective opinion, but that's me. And yeah. I get the credentials in there, but and even rather than a list, do it in those creative ways that Jonathan and Wang Jie did. I mean, that's even better if you can. All right. The next step of this would be, okay, so you land the interview, somebody is going to talk to you. Then what do you do? Let me go back over here. Oh, you know, I actually wanted to read just 1 or 2 more. So here's one that's pretty quick, pretty straightforward. It doesn't have that kind of wacky humor of which I really like in Jie's and Jonathan's. But Caroline Shaw is a New York-based musician. She's the youngest ever winner of the Pulitzer Prize for Music for her enigmatic composition, Partita for 8 Voices. Her career defies categorization. She performs as a violin soloist, chamber musician, and as a vocalist in the Grammy-winning ensemble Room Full of Teeth. She also frequently collaborates with Kanye West. Currently a doctoral candidate at Princeton. I think this needs an update. This is from a little bit ago. Caroline also studied at Rice and Yale. Caroline loves the color yellow. Otters, Beethoven Opus 74, Mozart opera, the smell of rosemary, and the sound of a janky mandolin. Love it. Pretty straightforward. And yet I feel like I've learned some things about her already. I have a sense of her personality. And if I'm an interviewer, I've got half a dozen questions all lined up. New York-based composer Nina C. Young writes music characterized by an acute sensitivity to tone color. Her experience in the electronic music studio informs her acoustic work, which takes as its given not melody and harmony, but sound itself, continuously metamorphosing from one state to another. Interesting. And that might be a place to start. And I know some of you who are in this room have bios that characterize your work, and that helps me find my way in. I like that. All right, so you get the interview. Then what? I would say if I had more time, I'd list more, but let's narrow it down to 2 principles of coming across well in an interview. Have a point of view and tell personal stories. Have a point of view. Take a stand about something. Make an assertion. And I'm going to do some screen sharing so I can play some audio again. Not again, because I don't think I've played any audio yet. Let's hit the screen share button. Screen share. There we go. So,
I'm going to reveal to you the sexiest piece of classical music ever written.
Could you hear that? Could you hear that 5-second clip? That's a conductor named William Eddins, Bill Eddins. There's no sexiest piece of classical music ever written, but he says it like he damn well knows it. And you know that he believes it in his guts.
I'm going to reveal to you the sexiest piece of classical music ever written.
He's not just making it up for effect. He believes it. By the way, he was talking about the string quartet by Maurice Ravel. For what it's worth. He has a point of view, comes across clearly and directly, and is memorable. Here's Midori.
The educational value of the youth orchestra programs, they are just so immense. It's not just about the music. It's about, changing a life.
Midori, who has altered her career to such an extent. I mean, she could just play 10 concerts a year, 20 concerts a year, have a fantastic income, but she has chosen to devote a tremendous amount of energy to education and to sharing music with a lot of kids who wouldn't have access to it otherwise. And I love the last thing she says.
The educational value of the youth orchestra programs, they are just so immense. It's not just about the music. It's about, changing a life.
It's about changing a life. Natalie Joichet, flutist from Brooklyn, also has some thoughts about teaching.
It's amazing to me to go into classrooms because I know that I never saw myself as a guest in a classroom, as a student. I go into each classroom setting, whether it's with young children or in a mentorship capacity with older university students, and I try to see each person that's in the room. I think it's really valuable as a young person to have an adult look at you and say, I see you, and what you are doing is wonderful. Who you are is wonderful. Having just one person say that to you in your life can make a really big difference.
Natalie's she's the daughter of Haitian immigrants, grew up in the Haitian community in Brooklyn, tremendous flutist, went to Juilliard, totally has the credentials of a classical training and plays and writes a much wider range of music as well. So that's one thing. Have a point of view. Tell stories about yourself. I played in a band that opened for the Grateful Dead. First time I went on the radio, I was too scared to talk. It's interesting to me, just reflecting on that, and the next thing I'm going to say, which is don't tell just the fun, positive stories about yourself. Share the failures. Maybe I should have that story about staring at the microphone and being too afraid to say anything. Maybe that should be in my bio too, because some of the most compelling stories are about failures.
I had a nightmare concert, a nightmare performance, like the worst concert I've ever had in my life, because I do have memory slips.
Simona Dinnerstein was playing the Maurice Ravel Piano Concerto, had it memorized except she didn't and had to stop. And like it was so like she stopped, the orchestra stopped, like as she said, like it's a nightmare performance. And she shared that with me in an interview that she knew was being recorded for national broadcast. A professional pianist, her PR people would have said, don't tell that story. You don't want orchestras to hear that you had a memory slip and you had to stop. But then she went on to say what that meant to her and what she learned from that. She changed the way she learned pieces of music, not just front to back, but back to front. She learned the final phrase and then the beginning of the coda leading up to that, and then the transition leading up to the coda. And she learned it backwards too, and she's never had a memory slip since. But she started off by saying, oh my God, I had a concert where I had a memory slip and I stopped and it was a nightmare. That's so counterintuitive. And PR people would tell you, don't do that. Don't let that story out there. But to me, it makes her, I mean, I already admire her musicianship. The Goldberg Variations recording she did was wonderful. And now telling this story, she's human as well. Personal, oh my goodness. Violinist Augustine Hadley.
In December 1999, I was still living in Italy, where my parents have a farm, and I grew up there. And I had a very bad accident where I got burned very badly. I think it was 58% of my skin. One of the first things that came to my mind were that I might not be able to play again. But I mean, I met people at the hospital that was that's got burnt 95%, so much worse off. So I decided I was in some ways very lucky in what happened, because I didn't injure my left hand, and I also didn't lose any fingers.
He went through 20 rounds of surgery. Thought he wouldn't be able to play again. Well, now, 20 years later, he's among my favorite violinists of his generation and has a career as a chamber music player and orchestral soloist with major ensembles in all the big venues around the world. And that, I'm thinking of what you said, Paolo, about, yeah, but there's things I want to keep private in my life. And Augustine, when his career began 15-ish years ago, all his publicity pictures only showed one side of his face, because the other side of his face was pretty badly burned and he had a lot of reconstructive surgery. So all his album covers, all his publicity shots, all the pictures in the paper were always just one side of his face. And about 10 years ago, he changed that. And now his pictures are straight on, both sides of his face equally lit. You see that the other side of his face is unusual. And he made a decision at some point to share that part of himself, that literal part of himself, with the world. He made the decision to tell me that story about being burned on the family farm. No, again, knowing it was for national broadcast. It's, again, humanizing, and may no one ever have to live through such a thing. But he did, and here he is, a wonderful musician, a fantastic violinist. And that's a story that he gets asked about a lot. And this is something else that for some people, there are these kind of tentpole stories. Leon Fleischer lost the use of his right hand. He got focal dystonia and his fingers kind of curled up like this. Oops, I'm still sharing. Let's stop sharing so you can see me. His fingers kind of curled up like this, and he lost the use of his right hand for 30 plus years. And then with Botox injections in his hand and certain kinds of massage, he got it back and he was able to start playing with two hands again. Well, everybody wants to hear him tell that story, and he never does it grudgingly. He tells it every time as if it's the first time, and he's kind of reliving it, and he's real, and he's in the moment, and he's never just going through the motions. He never says, I'm tired of telling that story, because he knows it means something to people. I was very lucky to talk to Beverly Sills, and this goes back some years, but her nickname was Bubbles. She's been asked a million times, why does she have the nickname Bubbles?
Fred, that's a little bit hard to hear.
I don't think I was very gurgly and bubbly. So it was simply that. It was a great big spit bubble and it was popped. So the doctor said, I guess we're going to have to call this one Bubbles. And that's what happened.
Sorry if that was too low level to come across very well. When she was born, she had a spit bubble in her mouth and the doctor popped it. And you can hear in the way she's telling that story, she's not just rehashing a story she's told a million times. She's in the moment as she's telling that story. This one's longer. So let's make sure. Peter, tell me if this is not loud enough. This is violinist Robert McDuffie.
I think if you share your screen again, that'll help come through. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Peter. I'm sorry. See, Ching, I need you to teach me about multimedia. Okay, back to screen sharing. Push this button, push screen sharing, hit the screen button, push share. There we go. All right, let's hear the beginning of Beverly Sills.
Well, I was born with a big spit bubble in my mouth, and the doctor had to break it. So it's...
Yeah, so that's why she's called Bubbles. And then Robert McDuffie.
I was 14 in Macon. I'd already been playing violin for 8 years. I wanted to quit. I was also on the varsity basketball team. And our big playoff game was the night that Itzhak Perlman came to Macon. My parents made me go hear the performance.
They didn't let you play in the playoff game.
And I was starting. I had worked hard in basketball practice. I had been promoted to the starting team. The cheerleaders were going to see me introduced. It was very important for an adolescent. I went kicking and screaming to Mr. Perlman's performance. I sat on the front row. I made my parents sit in the back, literally crying. I didn't want to be there. But the minute he started to play, I experienced a joy of music making that I'd never experienced before. And having been a violinist myself for 8 years, I saw what he could do on that fiddle. It changed my life. It was that night that I decided to become a violinist and didn't really care about basketball anymore. Now, I'm in a poker group with Itzhak Perlman now. We've been in the same group for 20 years. And I remember when I told him that story, he said, well, you would have made a lot more money playing basketball. But, that's just his way of handling compliments. He likes to answer with jokes, but I think he was really touched at the same time.
A couple of these are like origin stories. Augustine Hadelich talking about being a teenager and something terrible that happened to him. Robert McDuffie, how he went from being a promising violin student to devoting his life to music. Every single one of us in this room has not just an origin story, but things that we've had to overcome to get to where we are now. Kate, I'm so glad you asked me, and part of my origin story is staring at a microphone and being too afraid to say anything. We all have, every single one of us has these stories of attempting, being ambitious, failing, and what we did or did not learn from that. Jerry just wrote a comment, vulnerability helps connect. Exactly. When I've done this same kind of talk in person for students, most recently at the Curtis Institute, I've sometimes asked folks to just talk to me. Just let's you and me just have a conversation about who you are and what you do and why you do what you do. And it's unerring and it's universally true that every one of us who enters this field has fear, has ambition, and has stories of things that we've had to overcome. And every time I've done this, I've sat down with a young musician or a composer, and several of them start off by saying, there's nothing interesting about me. I got nothing. No, I'm just a regular person. But then we talk for 5 minutes, and there's something amazing and memorable in everybody's story. I was just mentioning to you and some friends recently that I went to see the late, great Spalding Gray, monologist Spalding Gray, do a show in Brooklyn. And it was shortly after his movie, Swimming to Cambodia, came out. And man, I just loved what he did with his planned written monologue. And I went hoping to see that again. And he got up on stage and he just sat there in a chair and had a little microphone. And he said, I got nothing planned. I don't know what to do. They're paying me for 2 hours and I don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 hours. And I thought, oh, come on, man. I made the trip all the way to Brooklyn to see you. What are you doing? And he said, I'm just going to invite some people up from the audience and we're just going to talk. And it was 3 people, easily filled 2 hours with some of the most fascinating conversation about their lives. It's not just, all of us are in kind of a special position, artists, aspiring artists, dealing with the history of the art form and what we want the future of the art form to be and where we fit in all of that. And that comes with special vulnerabilities and pain and discovery at every step of the way. But everybody in every walk of life has these same basic dynamics and principles too. So I've got some more audio clips I could play for you, but I'm also noticing that it's 9 minutes till the top of the hour, and I'd love to just throw it open and chat. Let me just at least scroll through a little bit, see if there are any comments. A compact bio using hypertext that allows readers to do a deep dive if they wish. Excellent. JX, excellent comment. Yes. If you have the wherewithal to put hyperlinks in your bio, all the better. The one I didn't really look at, we just saw the front page of Gustavo Dudamel's bio. His is just layer upon layer upon layer. It's like an infinitely unfolding book of hyperlinks.
I think you got the things that appeared in the chat. I was kind of keeping track. If we're missing somebody, let me know.
Yeah, or if anybody wants to just unmute yourself and make a comment or observation or question or share something from your own experience, or hey, more critique of my bio.
Kate?
Hi.
Just speaking of more critique of Fred's bio. Maybe she's done.
No, this is just a general question. Thank you, first of all, for this really illuminating talk. Learned a lot, really appreciate your time. More and more often, and we sort of got to this a little earlier, I'm asked for an 100-word bio, and I find that particularly challenging to manage. So I'm wondering if you have any tips about what to include in such a small number of words.
I love that. That's a great question. What do you do with if somebody says, I need a 100-word bio, 100 words or less? What do I put in there? It's like being a composer and thriving in the world of limitations.
Or just
I got to turn you up to hear you, Kate.
I was just going to say, it's like being asked to write your bio in a tweet or something.
Yeah, like being asked to write a bio in a tweet. Yeah. pick that one favorite story. Pick 3 top credentials and 1 favorite story. And that's it. Tell the story in 2 sentences. Have 3 little credentials that you weave in, and that's it. And if you've already been asked to send a bio, it's probably something where they've already hired you. So this is for like a program note in a concert. So you're already in the door. You don't need to, you're not trying to get your foot in and pry that door open a little bit. You're already in the door. Yeah. Pick out that one story, boil it down. I played in a band that opened for the Grateful Dead at the Oakland Coliseum. And I once got to interview Emmylou Harris. Kate, I know your name. You're a violinist, right? I don't think you and I have ever met, but yeah. So what's your, well, where did you grow up?
I grew up in northern New Jersey in the suburbs of New York City.
In northern New Jersey, suburbs of New York. How did you start playing the violin?
So when I was really little, a baby, my mom took me to Music Together, which is like a mommy and me sort of music class, early childhood music class. And when once I got too old for that, my parents asked the teacher how I could continue since I really loved music. And the teacher suggested Suzuki violin. So when I was 3, I started, but I don't remember that. I was so young, but that's how I started.
Ah, the family lore before you even have the memories of it. Yes. Those become family legends.
Yes.
See, and we're already heading down a path that, okay, so you already loved music, like before you can even remember anything in your life. You already loved music. So I can see we're already heading down a path that has interesting stories about how that love of music developed, when violin became not just a pastime, but like a lifetime passion for you, the different ways that's led you. And I know you play with ensembles that do a lot of new music, how you came to that. See, I can see the story beginning to unfold already.
I know in my own bio my own bio needs a lot of work, because it definitely is just a list mostly, but I took a couple of detours in my musical life in college and things like that could, I don't know, I think I could talk about that more and paint a broader picture.
Kate Dreyfus loved music since before she can remember. Opening sentence of a bio. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. Wow, it's super close to the top of the hour now.
I'm not going to cut you off, Fred. This is a friendly format here.
It's not like, when I do my daily radio show, it has to be exactly 2 hours, and each hour has to be exactly 59 minutes.
Exactly. Our sponsors are chomping at the bit here, so can you wrap it up, please?
Right. If anybody else has specific questions about bios or general questions, I mean, we haven't even talked about the world of new media and social media, which is changing so fast and so rapidly. And Paulo raised this interesting question, and I have a real resistance to sharing everything and every day and pictures and videos on social media. And even, I mean, G and I will take pictures of something like our dinner, and she'll be like, "Oh, what? You didn't put up the picture of our dinner?" Oh, I just enjoyed eating it. She's like, "No, but you should share that." I mean, these are legitimate conversations, and people have legitimate differences and different personalities and different approaches to this. So Paulo, I think Paulo might have signed off, but I totally get that. And man, do I empathize with that. And you got to balance that with knowing that you can have some control over telling the story about yourself that's out in the world. I see. I've seen a couple of people who are outdoors, and I'm so jealous. Jerry was walking outdoors at one point. I don't know who else has a thought or a comment or an observation or a question. Interviews are easier when, oh, wait a minute. Where'd that go? Oh, from Wang Jie. All interviews are easier when the interviewer is not your future spouse. She and I met when I interviewed her 10 years ago, fall of 2010, on stage with the Minnesota Orchestra. They were playing one of her symphonies, and we were doing a live broadcast. And there were 7 living composers. I interviewed each one on stage before the concert, right like moments before Osmo Venska and the Minnesota Orchestra play their piece for a packed house at Orchestra Hall in Minneapolis and a live broadcast audience. And I had told all of the composers the questions I was going to ask them ahead of time, because I wanted to kind of make it easier and lower the stress. Well, this one composer struck me as having a little extra spark. So when her turn came, I did not ask her the questions I had told her I was going to ask her. And my memory of it is that it was fantastic. And she thought on her feet after like a second and a half of being like deer in the headlights. Gee, what was your experience of that?
Worst interview of my life.
Because I didn't know at the time, but she had gone back to her hotel room and prepared an answer to the questions I had told her I was going to ask her. I mean, she did her homework. And then I asked her completely different questions. And here we are now married.
You know, I was really like scared of that suit you were wearing, that stripes.
Oh yeah, I had pants with pleats, and I had the vertical stripes, and long since lost that suit, but yeah.
You did ask her one question where she had quite a well-prepared, succinct answer. I think it was, will you marry me, maybe?
That came some years later. It took a while to get to that. And it's a yes or no question, but she did not answer with yes nor with no.
Well, that's a start, right? At least it's not a no.
See, this is in my daily broadcast, we call this a tease line. Oh, what did she say? What did she say? She said, "What took you so long?" Of course I'll marry you. Maybe that should be in my bio too.
You know, that's what my father-in-law said when I asked for my wife's hand. It has multiple meanings, I think. What took you so long?
Yeah. What took you? Yes, right. What took you so long? There's a lot there in just those few words. I think, Peter, the plan was to pivot into just a kind of a hang anyway. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah. So what I wanted to do was just keep it very informal, and I'm going to stop recording, and we're going to just make this on the honor system. So if you would like to stick around, especially the people who are at the beginning of their careers, we would love to have that. If you want to stick around and listen in anyway, you're welcome. But I wanted this to be just a closed session that people can say what's really on their mind and ask the questions that they really want to know, and that'll be safe for everyone. So I'm going to stop recording, and if you're taking off, I want to thank you for joining us, and it's been really, really wonderful to have you here for these 2 incredible talks. And I hope that you can join us for all of the events that we have coming up. And thanks to Wang Jie and Fred so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks. I see a lot of thanks from Carlos and Meryl and Giancarlo and Amy and Ben. Thank you for being here and being part of this and making it a collaboration, not just a monologue, but a dialogue. I so appreciate that. And man, I've got some improvements I can make to my bio now.
I told Kate that can be the first line of her bio now is, known for her revisions of Fred Child's bio, Kate is
Absolutely.
also a violinist.
I love it.
Thanks to everybody. I'm going to stop recording now, and we really appreciate you being here. And let's open it up to questions.